Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. The Combine week has finally come, and we're taking a look at some of the prospects we have our eyes on in this 2023 NFL Combine. Before we get into it, I just want to say thank you. You guys, all the support you guys have shown to the channel truly means a lot. Almost 4,200 subscribers on the channel. That's absolutely insane, and the support you guys have shown has meant a lot. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We're kicking it old school here. We're going to go position by position. I have my draft notes on just some of the prospects that I have my eyes on in this combine, whether it's potential concerns I have at certain long speed at the quarterback spot or some guys to keep your eyes on who are going to put up blazing numbers in the 40 as well. But again, appreciate you guys checking us out. Let's start out with this quarterback spot. And again, not really a meaningful the combine isn't really a quarterback's event. The guy you got to keep your eye on, though, is Anthony Richardson. In terms of a freak athlete in this NFL Combine, Anthony Richardson could put up some freaky numbers. Again, he's a guy that he's the ultimate lottery ticket in this NFL draft. Extreme upside, MVP level upside, but he also has a lot of question marks. He is a project in a lot of senses, and you don't even know if it's ever going to click with him. But if there is going to be a guy at this quarterback position that turns some heads at the Combine, it is going to be a guy like Anthony Richardson. It doesn't really take you that long to check out his highlights and say, yeah, this dude is special from an athletic standpoint. Moving on to more of an important position at the running back spot. The first guy you want to highlight is Devon Achane, coming from Texas A&M, Olympic level track speed. I'm hearing that he's going to go in the 4.2s. If he does, you know an NFL team is going to say, I want that speed at my running back position. I also want to see his weight. There's a lot of question marks on, is he even 185 pounds? So you have some question marks of how many touches can you give this guy in an NFL game? Can the body hold up? But again, the speed is going to have teams are going to love the speed. And Devon Achane has a chance to really separate himself from a really, really deep NFL draft class at that running back position. The other guy at this running back spot that I have my eyes on, Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama. I'm seeing, and this is more of a concern thing. Like, I'm seeing a lot of Alvin Kamara comps. I'm seeing people say he's going to run in the 4.2s. I don't see that on the film. I'm interested to see what his like how good of an athlete is he in terms of straight line speed. How much does he weigh? Because he's a guy that I think is a little bit closer to a guy like James Cook than he is to an Alvin Kamara. So I want to see the weight. I want to see how does he have the burners that some people think he does. I think he's more of a lateral guy, more of a shifty guy than a straight burner guy. And then another guy to keep your eye on, Zach Charbonnet. I think this dude is going to run really fast for how big he is. And obviously, a guy like Bijan Robinson also is going to tear up the combine. We already know he was that good of an athlete. Moving on to the wide receivers. This and the cornerbacks is probably the most exciting position group to keep your eye on for the combine. A couple of guys that I have jotted down in my notes. One, Jaylin Hyatt from Tennessee. Obviously, he's a guy that he could also be, you're hearing 4.2 rumors. I'm excited. That's kind of where he's hung his hat on, is I'm a flyer. I'm a vertical threat. You got to show me at the combine that you have that speed. That kind of shows up on your film. You want to see it verified at the combine. Another guy to keep your eye on, Darius Davis. He's a day 3 prospect, but he also has some burners on him. He's been clocked at 23 plus miles per hour game speed. That's a really, really this dude flies. And again, if you can show that you have an elite level of speed, it's really hard to cover a guy that is just straight up faster than you. And I don't care if he's 5'9", 180 pounds. This dude absolutely can cook. Kayshon Boutte, more of just a are you healthy? Like, making sure this dude is healthy. He had a lot of injuries. He had a lot of off-the-field concerns. So, one, how does he look as an athlete? And then 2, what are the interviews looking like? Another guy that I have that you got to keep your eye on is a dude, and this is a more of a day 3 project as well. Justin Shorter from Florida, got to find him here. Highlight him. 6'4", 230 pounds. I think he's going to run in the 4.4s. And again, guys who are that big and that fast don't grow on trees. I think he's going to be a dude that he was a former 5-star for a reason. He transfers to Florida where he just didn't have that much consistency from a quarterback standpoint. Emory Jones in 2021, Anthony Richardson in 2022. He was solid, but again, that's an offense that isn't necessarily going to be suitable for wide receivers to put up big numbers. I think he's flying a little under the radar. He's a guy that I have. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba, again, hamstring injury of all of 2022, so you didn't really get to see him. I don't even know if he'll run the 40, and quite frankly, I don't really care if he runs a 40. He's still a first-round wide receiver on my board. People have concerns about, does he have burners? And again, I don't care, because when you turn the film on in 2021, this dude just gets the wide receiver position. He can create separation in man coverage, and he really does excel in zone coverage. And just understanding where to sit down routes, where to find that open grass. And when C.J. Stroud needed a play in 2021, and you think of the guys like Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave on that team, he was looking at Jackson Smith-Njigba. So would you like to see him run a solid 40 time? If he does run, sure. I'm not too concerned about it, unless it's like a 4.6 where he really doesn't have any burners. But I don't think it'll be that bad. At the tight end position, two guys that I have highlighted, at least in my notes. One, Darnell Washington. I think he's going to run a faster 40 than most people think. He's much more of a linear guy, right? 6'7", 275 pounds, kind of a freak athlete. Some people say he's the LeBron James of the college football world. I think he's going to turn some heads on how fast he can run in the 40. The concerns you have more with him are the pass catching chops and more of a how well can he work horizontally? Like, we know you can get down the field and rip seams. Can you create some separation? So some of those shuttle runs and cone drills might be a better workout for Darnell Washington to show that he can be a pass catcher at the next level. Again, if he was not behind Brock Bowers, I think he'd have not as much of a stigma in the sense that he can't be a pass catcher at the next level. Another guy you got to keep an eye on, Luke Musgrave from Oregon State. And again, missed all of 2022 for the most part with the hamstring or a knee injury, I believe. But when he played 2 games early on, he was absolutely electric. At the Senior Bowl, clocked at 20-plus miles per hour on the GPS. I think he could be a dude that, again, 6'5", 260 pounds. If he can run in the 4.5s and be kind of that matchup nightmare, he's going to start getting some more buzz as a first-round tight end. I have him kind of more towards that 50-ish range, middle of day 2. He could work his way up into a day 1 pick if he can run a fast 40 and show that he has that elite size that linebacker or that safeties can't deal with, and then the speed that linebackers can't deal with. Getting to the offensive line, a little bit less of an important position. A couple of guys that I have noted, I got to flip through my notes here. Paris Johnson Jr., I think he's the best athlete in this draft class as an offensive lineman. Extremely explosive dude. I want to see the weight as well, because again, 6'6" frame, only 310 pounds. Has he put on a little weight? Because if there is one concern you have as he gets into the NFL, it is that anchor and pass protection. But in terms of being explosive and powerful in the run game, he has that in droves. Peter Skoronski, arm length, how long are his arms? A lot of those NFL nerds like to be like, oh, he 32-inch arms, sub 33, can't play tackle at the next level. I'm not too concerned with that. That guy has the best film of any offensive lineman in this class. He's going to be a good athlete. I do want to see the arm length, though, because as much as we hate it as a lot of NFL draft community, that's what NFL teams care about. Last one, DeJuan Jones, the freak, 6'8", 360-plus pounds. He has, 38-inch arms, I believe. He's a mammoth out there. Can he be an athlete? So when he's working through those drills, how fluid of an athlete does he look? Because that's the main concern. When you get to the NFL and you're dealing with elite speed rushers, does he have the footwork to get outside and pick some of those guys up? Probably the biggest concern you have with DeJuan Jones. But if he can show some fluidity as an athlete at this combine, I think a lot of teams are going to be jumping on him, kind of top 50-ish range. Moving on to the edge class, and this is where it gets fun. The defensive line class. A couple of guys that I have. Jalen Carter is an obvious one. He's going to absolutely light this combine on fire. He's the most dominant player in this draft class. I expect him to test as one of the most dominant players in this draft class. And whatever Georgia is doing in that strength and conditioning room in Athens, like, the water's just different, because you saw those Georgia guys last year, Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, test phenomenally well. I don't think it'll be any different for a guy like Jalen Carter. Two guys that I want to see kind of turn some more heads. Myles Murhpy, for some reason, falling down a lot of people's boards in 2023. I think this combine is massive for him, because, again, you're seeing people be like, oh, Tyree Wilson's a better prospect than Myles Murhpy. People are forgetting how much of a freak Myles Murhpy has looked on the field, especially in 2021. And the reason is, like, he was a former top 10 nationally ranked player coming out of high school, The film matches it. I think he's going to test really well and kind of get himself back in that top 10 discussion where for some reason he's fallen out of. Last guy, Bryan Bresee. He's another guy that, as a true freshman, just like his teammate Myles Murhpy, looked different athletically. He tears his ACL, banged up in 2022, didn't look as good. If he can put together a really good combine and kind of remind NFL teams and scouts, GMs, why he was so good coming out of high school, why he looked so good as a true freshman, I think he's also a guy that kind of gets himself back in that discussion as a top 20, top 15 pick. I will say, though, Myles Murphy's film in 2022 was still solid, and I don't know why people are sleeping on him as much as they do. Bryan Bresee's film in 2022, some serious concerns. I think he can answer some of those concerns with some elite testing where people are like, yep, I'm going to bet on the traits of a guy like Bryan Bresee. Some other guys, Mazi Smith, I think, is going to test extremely well. Was on Bruce Feldman's freak list from Michigan. 350 pounds, extremely explosive dude. I expect him to test extremely well. Keon White from Georgia Tech, that's kind of where he's hung his hat on. Again, kind of a tweener, if you will, at 285 pounds, but extremely explosive, extremely strong. He kind of seems to be a guy that a lot of scouts like because of those physical traits he has. And then the last one, Tyree Wilson, who I don't think will be working out because of his injury, but he's a guy that the measurements, people are going to love the length. People are going to love the size. Another guy that you want to keep your eye on, though, Zach Harrison, another former blue chip recruit at Ohio State. He's going to test really well. He's going to have really long arms. Excited to see what he does and possibly boost his draft stock a little bit because he never really seemed to put it together at Ohio State. But again, at that edge position, you saw it with Trayvon Walker last year. NFL teams will bet on traits of pass rushers. I think Zach Harrison has a lot of those traits, and I think he'll test it well and kind of show some of those traits and maybe move himself up into a top 75, top 50 prospect when it's all said and done. Moving on to the linebacker class. And this is where I think it kind of gets interesting because you have, let's highlight and talk about Jack Campbell first. And it's not necessarily, he's probably not going to be the freakiest tester. That being said, he has the best film of any off-ball linebacker in this class. And so if he can just kind of like Sauce Gardner had the best cornerback film of that 2022 NFL draft class. Some athletic concerns. He checked those boxes at the combine and then was a top 3 pick. I think a guy like Jack Campbell could also be a guy like, okay, NFL teams love the film. You have some athletic question marks. If he can test really well or just not concerningly poor, I think Jack Campbell could solidify himself as one of the best linebackers in the class. And then on the opposite side, Trenton Simpson, who I expect to test off the charts coming from Clemson. He's probably most of the scouts linebacker one because of those testing. Now, if teams are going to bet on those traits, that if you're taking Trenton Simpson in the top 50, in the top 40, you're betting on those traits that he has, he's going to have to live up to those at the NFL Combine because, quite frankly, the film wasn't as good as you wanted it to be. And then the last guy I want to, highlight, Owen Popo from Auburn. He's going to blaze. He might be in the 4.3. He might go sub 4.4. That's how fast this dude is. Another former 5-star coming in at Auburn. Struggled with injuries. I expect him to test extremely well. He was one of the most freakiest athletes out of his high school recruiting class. He's a guy that could get some more traction as a day 2 linebacker if he puts together a really, really good week at the NFL Combine. And then one other guy that I didn't really have in my notes, but I do want to talk about, Henry To'oTo'o, kind of similar to Jack Campbell. You like the film. He understands the position extremely well. I never saw him as a great athlete. I'm a little concerned about like how much does he weigh? How fast is he? How athletic is he? And how strong is he? If he can check some of those boxes at the combine, I think that'll help his draft stock. Again, he's not going to test extremely well. You don't want to see him test extremely poorly. And honestly, Drew Sanders, he could test like a freak. There's a reason he was a 5-star recruit at that edge position. Transferred to off-ball linebacker at Arkansas. He's a guy that could really put together a nice week of testing. And then finally, rounding out this group with the defensive backs, flipping my page here in my books. Let's start with a guy like Julius Brents right on top of the list. Julius Brents has length for days, 34-inch arms. He's 6'3", very fluid mover for his size. My question marks is, does he have that long speed? Played a lot of zone coverage where he wasn't really forced to turn and run with a lot of wide receivers. And I think that's where he's going to fit into the NFL mostly if he transitions to the NFL. More of a zone coverage guy who you use that length, let him keep his eyes on the quarterback. but you got to answer those questions of can you run with some of those wide receivers. If he can do that, run a sub 4.45, sub 4.5 in general, I would really like his chops at being a day two a cornerback off the board and a really deep cornerback class, quite frankly. Christian Gonzalez from Oregon, he's probably going to test as the best athlete at this cornerback group. 6'2", 205, 210-ish pounds. He might run in like low 4.3s. He's an absolute flyer. I believe his parents, one of them was a track athlete as well, so he's got the genes to run extremely fast. Joey Porter Jr., he's another guy similar to Julius Brents and Eli Ricks. I think both of those guys I want to see kind of check the box. Very similar to Sauce Gardner. Long guys, 6'2", and Joey Porter Jr.'s kid. Both of them, actually, Eli Ricks and Joey Porter Jr., 6'2", long arms, very fluid athletes. Do you have that long speed to match up with some of those elite wide receivers in terms of working vertically down the field? If those guys can check those boxes, I also like them as Eli Ricks. Keep an eye on Eli Ricks. He didn't play much for Alabama because he got suspended, but as I've gotten more into his film, and a limited sample size might that be, he's really, really good. Those are a couple guys that I have my eyes on in the sense of guys who I think could either really help their draft stock or at least just check the boxes and have NFL teams say, okay, yep, you're a good enough athlete to fit in at the NFL level. Again, let me know in the comment section what guys you have your eyes on. I'm sure there's some sleepers, some gems that might test extremely well. We will be breaking down after every day of the combine. We'll be hopping on, breaking down the workouts, breaking down the winners, the losers of this NFL combine. And of course, appreciate the support you guys have shown the channel. If you do like the content, consider subscribing. We appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.